Welcome to Bryan Air, leading the aviation conversation from the flight deck and beyond. This show brings you real talk for real aviators, from airline operations and training standards to leadership in and out of the flight deck. If you're serious about staying current, staying sharp, and building long-term impact in your life, you're in the right place.
That you are. Hey, guys.
What's happening?
Good, man.
The IATA Global Air Transport Summary came out, or probably a couple of weeks ago. It was about a week ago, I think. I only saw it yesterday. I've broken it down. I want to run through it with you and want to reiterate. I've broken it down from a pilot perspective. So it's sort of, it's not written for pilots. It's sort of written for the industry. But I know that pilots ain't going to be reading through that report.
No, there's no way. It's definitely the type of document that'll flash past your screen and you would be like, well, I'll leave that for someone on a higher pay grade. But I'm glad you've taken the time to break it down and make it simpler for us to understand.
Yeah, I thought I'd break it down from a pilot perspective. Obviously, to do that, I've had to formulate a couple of opinions and that in there, but it's pretty obvious, and I think it kind of makes a bit of sense. So follow with me here. I'll start off with an executive summary, and then I'll roll through the rest of the summary with you. So the IATA Global Outlook for Air Transport, this is June 2025, reveals a complex landscape for the aviation industry, marked by significant challenges from rising protectionism, supply chain disruptions, and evolving market dynamics. While the industry shows resilience with projected profits of $36 billion in 2025, several critical issues demand attention from aviation professionals and enthusiasts. That's where we come in, on the professional side. All right, topic number one, the great aircraft shortage crisis. The aviation industry is facing an unprecedented aircraft shortage that directly impacts every pilot and aviation professional right now. Aircraft deliveries are now lagging 30% behind their peak levels, creating a backlog of 17,000 aircraft. Keep in mind, this is a record high that represents a crisis in manufacturing capacity. What this means for pilots. If we assume this backlog is caused solely by delivery delays, airlines are currently short approximately 5,400 aircraft. If you're working on a 4 to 5 crew per aircraft, you can do the maths on that one. With expected annual production of around 2,000 aircraft, the shortage could take 3 to 5 years to resolve. The shortage is forcing airlines to maximize load factors and aircraft utilization rates. For pilots, what does this translate to? Higher aircraft utilization rates, meaning more flight hours per aircraft. Airlines are keeping older aircraft in service for longer. Increased demand for experienced pilots as airlines struggle to maintain schedules. On a plus side, there's a potential for higher pilot compensation as airlines compete for qualified crew. We're already seeing that play out already. The report highlights that tariffs on aircraft and parts are disrupting already struggling supply chains of aircraft manufacturers. This creates a cascading effect where delivery schedules become even more unpredictable, affecting airline planning and pilot career trajectories. It is very difficult for airlines to get their hands on aircraft right now. Firstly, there are no new gen aircraft available right now. We're looking at a 5-year wait for that. And if you do want one right now, you're going to be paying a very high lease rate. Topic number 2, passenger traffic growth, regional winners and losers. So let's look at the global picture. Global passenger traffic is projected to grow by 5.8% in 2025, which represents a significant downward revision from the previously projected 8%. The deceleration reflects the impact of economic uncertainty and, again, supply chain constraints. So leading the growth is Asia Pacific, 9% year-on-year growth. Europe seeing a steady recovery, 6% growth projected. And the mature market, North America, 0.4% growth projected. Reflects market maturity, but also economic headwinds. So this is staying now in the States. This surprised me when I went through the report. I would assume always just would assume that America would be booming well ahead, and it's not. It's simply plateaued at this stage. Lack of new aircraft, a major driving factor here, so expect to see a very broad plateau here for the next couple of years, at least in the States. So what does it mean for career planning for pilots and aviation professionals? These regional differences suggest where the most dynamic career opportunities will emerge. Asia Pacific's dominance indicates strong demand for pilots willing to work internationally, while North America's slower growth suggests a focus on operational efficiency and premium service delivery. All right, topic 3, the cargo conundrum, a tale of two markets. Air cargo growth is projected to slow dramatically to just 0.7% year over year in 2025. This represents a significant deceleration that affects cargo pilots, freight forwarders, and logistics professionals throughout the industry. A critical factor affecting the air cargo is the U.S. removal of the de minimis exemption, which previously allowed items worth less than $800 to be shipped to the U.S. without duties or import tax. In 2024, the U.S. received over 1 billion parcels by air under this category, representing approximately 7 billion cargo ton kilometers annually. The report reveals that air freight became more competitive compared to maritime shipping in 2024, leading to a modal shift from ships to aircraft. However, this advantage began unwinding in early 2025 as ocean cargo rates returned to previous levels. So implications for cargo aviation: reduced demand for cargo pilots and freight aircraft, potential consolidation in the cargo airline sector, increased focus on high-value, time-sensitive cargo, need for cargo operations to find new efficiency gains. And just to reiterate here, this is not IATA saying this. This is the report and us drawing conclusions from what's in that report. Topic 4, financial performance, profits amid challenges. The bottom line, the airline industry is projected to achieve a net profit of $36 billion in 2025, with a 3.7% net profit margin. While this represents solid performance historically for airlines, it's worth noting that this margin is only half of what global industries achieve on average. So from a financial performance, dividing it per region here, the Middle East is the profit leader, projected net profit of $12.7 billion. That's a 4% net profit margin. Europe, steady recovery, net profit of $11.3 billion. That's a 4.3% net profit margin. Then Latin America, $1.1 billion, 2.4% margin. What this means for aviation professionals: strong industry profitability generally translate to better job security, potential for improved compensation, investment in new tech, fleet modernization, and expansion opportunities. Topic 5, the fuel factor, lower costs and environmental pressure. The report projects Brent crude oil to average $69 per barrel this year, representing a 13% decline from 2024. Average jet fuel prices are expected at $86 per barrel, providing a significant cost relief for airlines. The environmental equation: lower fuel costs creates a complex dynamic for the industry's environmental goals. While reduced costs helps airlines profit, they may also reduce the economic incentive for fuel efficiency improvements and sustainable aviation fuel. The report tracks increasing SAF offtake agreements, indicating growing industry commitment to environmental goals despite economic pressure. This represents a critical area for aviation professionals to understand as environmental regulations continue to evolve. I want to jump into that with you a little bit later on. Topic 6, labor market dynamics, the pilot shortage context. With aircraft shortages limiting capacity growth, the traditional pilot shortage concerns are being masked by supply constraints rather than demand weakness. However, as aircraft deliveries eventually normalize, pilot demand is expected to surge. The report indicates that wage growth in the airline industry has generally kept pace with global inflation, though regional variations exist. The tight labor market for qualified aviation professionals continues to support compensation growth. Right, skills evolution, another key talking point for us later on. The industry's focus on efficiency and technology integration means aviation professionals need to stay current with advanced avionics and automation systems, sustainable aviation practices, digital operations and data analytics, customer service excellence in premium segments. So we'll wind back to that just now. And then topic 7, geopolitical impacts on aviation, airspace restrictions. Obviously, military conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine continue to impact global trade and restrict airspace availability. This creates operational challenges for airlines and affects route planning for international operations. The rise in protectionism and tariff policies creates uncertainty for the aviation industry, which is inherently global. The report emphasizes that aviation has been arguably the most global of global industries since the 1944 Chicago Convention. Different regions are facing varying levels of geopolitical risk affecting route viability and profitability, insurance costs and operational complexity, crew scheduling and international operations, cargo and passenger demand patterns. So that's the report, Paul, that I pulled, and obviously I've tried to summarize it from a aviator, a cabin crew member, anyone. How does it affect you? And obviously that's not IATA saying those things. That's the numbers there and kind of trying to formulate my own conclusions to what they speak about. There's a couple of interesting things there, and obviously from a pilot perspective where the opportunities are. And I was kind of, in a way, relieved reading it because we have been kind of pushing the Middle East a lot lately. If you want a job, go there. And the reason is that's where the money is, that's where the demand is. So you can expect to, hear us blabber on about that for maybe a couple more years to come. And the other interesting thing that is worth a conversation about, because it's very much in line with, I suppose, the new course for the podcast, is to do with skills evolution. Because you don't have to stop doing what you do. You can stay in the same role. If you're looking to expand a bit and go into another area to possibly give yourself a boost within your existing company, sustainable aviation fuel, it's something that we've kind of ignored. It's not going away. It's a topic. It's a major thing, and there's courses galore for it. If you want to upskill yourself on sustainable aviation fuel, a pretty low barrier of entry topic to jump into. I'm not going to lie to you, that interests me about that much. Okay, so it's not something I'm going to get involved in, but there are a lot of people that will.
There are the passionate types. One of our guests on our show quite a while ago, Tommy.
Yeah.
He did a whole study on that, and he went quite extensive into the research and study of that topic. And there are individuals out there that are passionate about that. So I certainly think that does create an opportunity or a segment within your operation, because no doubt operators will have to have someone or a department dedicated to that to research and explore those avenues. So
I think even Tommy said back then you had to have someone on your op spec.
Because, it means obviously researching, and I'm taking this off the top of my head now, but you've got to research the type of aircraft that you operate, the fuel that you're burning, the way that you're operating them, engine run times, APU running times, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot behind it, I'm sure.
There is. The other one that does interest me a bit more here, digital operations and data analytics. That side of the industry is going to explode.
Yeah.
Data is key. If you can go one step further, talk about AI, and that AI needs data to give proper answers. So data analytics is massive. Be nice to get Kim McCauley on the show sometime.
Yeah, shout out to Kim.
Shout out to Kim. Yeah, she's big on that IATA. So that's certainly a side of the business that is a real opportunity point. And then another thing that popped up here, customer service excellence in premium segments. So with the lack of aircraft coming to the line, there's going to be a sort of a hold on growth within your organization, at least a bigger hold on growth than there would if the aircraft were available. So you might find the airlines having to concentrate a little bit more on the product. And I suppose that's a good thing in lots of ways. So the aviation product, the airline product has always been, we're going to get you from A to B safely. And you know what, like in your ticket price, 99.99% of that is based on the expensive bit of metal that's flying you there and the pilot training and all those sort of things that are regulated to make sure that the flight's nice and safe, and probably not enough going to the actual refined product that you get offered as a paying passenger. So, yeah.
I do think they're going to have to focus heavily on the customer experience, like they mentioned, with the extended time now taking into account for the new aircraft to arrive. Airlines are operating older aircraft. Yep. And with that, your areas start looking a little bit dilapidated and tatty. So they're going to have to focus on making sure that the airplanes still look shiny and spick and span, and really focus on the service overall to keep it
going.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you reckon is going to happen? So obviously, less aircraft going to the operators. So that's limited amount of new aircraft, like A350s, Maxes have got a hell of a long delay, all the Neos. So what does that mean for the African market here if we narrow that down? Traditionally, we pick up older gen aircraft. If there are going to be less of them coming into the continent, correct? Can we make that assumption?
Yeah, I mean, if we take history into account, it certainly looks like that. And look, fortunately, I would say the majority of the aircraft that are operating in Africa right now are
not that old.
Yeah, I mean, we've got operators flying mostly 145s. The E-jets are becoming more and more popular and prevalent.
A lot of
737s and 320s, and the CRJ variants as well. So hopefully those types can stick it out for a while. Whether they are as strong as the old Mad Dogs, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. They're probably not. They aren't. However, you mentioned some pretty tough aeroplanes there that'll certainly be around for many years to come. So we can make that assumption: less aircraft, less new aircraft coming in, newer aircraft coming onto the African continent. The other big point there from a pilot perspective is the shortage. And the shortage is not being felt at the moment. It is, but it isn't. Not to the effect that you would think. And that's largely to do because the airlines aren't able to pick up as many of these aircraft as they would like, particularly in, say, North America, where that plateau is somewhat of an alarming thing. And I certainly don't have the analysis tools to be able to tell you, is that because of the lack of aircraft, or is that the supply chain, or is that got to do with tariffs and what's going on in America at the moment, which seems to be a bit of a circus right now.
Yeah, it's causing havoc. And I would probably go as far as to say that I think it's a combination of all those factors, guys. The supply chain issues have been ongoing for a long, long time. We've known about that. And the tariffs are going to further impact that because the price warfare ain't going to help the recovery of the supply chain.
Yeah, so we're in for this isn't going to be corrected overnight, meaning that the pilot shortage is going to remain. However, it's not a case of just walking into a job. I suppose a pilot at this stage sitting with, anything over 2,000 hours is in a relatively good position because the world really is open to you. But when you look at that report and, you could probably, certainly for us here at the bottom end of the African continent, you could probably, I don't say write off Europe as an option, but I don't think, you're not going to walk into a real legacy job in Europe right now. There needs to be slightly more growth on that side before they open it wide to foreigners. Latin America a bit down, and obviously America plateauing a bit. So your options really are the Middle Eastern carriers. And I suppose it does tie into what we spoke about on our episode last week, comparing not so much apples with apples, but doing it in a bit of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying, the recruitment war between Emirates and Riyadh.
I kind of drew the conclusion that the way it is right now and the way that this is pointing towards is it's more or less going back to the way things were in the industry pre-pandemic. Yeah. If you remember, just before 2020, there was a massive boom in China, and the salaries being offered there were like out of this world. And there was a massive, massive surge of crew being invited to the East and Far East, particularly the Middle East. So it's almost like it's going back towards it. And I draw more positivity out of this report because I think even for pilots that are still in the ab initio training phases, there's a positive trajectory for the future, and that means that there will be jobs going forward, despite all the recent talk of, single pilot operations and all that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty optimistic outlook, I think.
I agree. I like your point there. I think you're spot on. If you're looking at going into aviation at the moment, it's probably a very viable option. And even the single pilot ops, if that happens, and is it going to affect things as much as we think? If you take into account the expected growth, it's a major, major amount of pilots that are required for the industry going forward. I do believe that there are some changes coming. I have no doubt that the single pilot ops is going to come into effect. Whether or not it means that there is just one pilot in that aircraft, I have my doubts there.
Yeah.
But certainly for maybe the cruise phase of flight on something like an A350, maybe you don't need that extra support captain on that sector. So that will change the crew numbers a little bit.
So the biggest change you're talking about is, I suppose, the way we used to think. We'd leave flight school, get our first job, build hours, join an airline, and then that's basically where you sat. You were happy. Once you landed your airline job, you were set for life. That was your career. Enjoy it until your golden era.
Yeah.
But you've got to wear a different hat now at the start of your career. There's a positive outlook. You will certainly have a flying job, but in line with what you were saying is make sure that you've got an idea of how you're going to upskill yourself on the side to make yourself more valuable, or perhaps transition if required.
Yeah. I spoke to Kim James last week. She was chatting about the drone industry. The drone industry has almost sort of started to align itself, at least after that conversation. I felt it was far more aligned with aviation than I originally gave it credit for. Upskilling doesn't mean taking a course and it has to be aligned in your current role, like doing a TCAS course. So I'm going to do another RVSM course. We do those courses because we need those endorsements. But there's lots of little avenues that you can take, like little offshoots that you may not have thought about. Like a drone license is something that you can do. For me right now, if there's anything on the data, the analytics side, I would be looking to upskill there. So if there are any youngsters watching, wondering, what we would recommend there, I certainly would be looking at what impact is AI going to have how's digitization going to affect aviation, and what can I do? What can I learn? What skills can I bring to the table that might be able to help an airline through this transitional period? And the interesting thing is, and even if you look at that IATA report, they've got to base it on something, and they're very good at basing things on data. But when you go and project, like I've tried to do there now, it takes opinions to project forward and what I think. So not many people willing to put their neck on the line and say, I think this is going to happen. But man, I do see opportunities there in the industry. Better pay. Maybe we even get to a point where the rosters start aligning with a little bit more of a lifestyle factor there, because if this pilot shortage does come to even a quarter of the fruition that we're talking about, the airlines are going to need pilots, and they're going to have to encourage the pilots to go and fly for that airline. You can do that with money, but even more so these days, you can do it with lifestyle. So you might get to a point again, this little reversal where, no, you're not necessarily going to fly 100 hours a month and be away from home for, 20 days. There might be some changes coming there.
Hopefully it does work out that way, because that then basically returns it to being a dream job.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
At the moment, I think certainly the guys and girls that I talk to out there, they still love the job, but they are taking strain. And
they're flying hard.
They're flying hard, but
earning the money. And I think that's why we hear less of it. You're kind of earning good money. We're getting bonuses, all that type of stuff. And if you, I don't think anyone really minds working hard if you're being rewarded in that way. And pilots certainly are being rewarded at the moment. Massive bonuses being paid out at airlines. Emirates have got the ball rolling there. I think you're going to have other airlines sort of having to follow suit there, and maybe pay the pilots the odd bit of profit sharing there.
Yeah.
So things are going off in a real positive direction. I'm interested to carry on watching this. If you have any opinion on what we've spoken about there and how we analyze that IATA report that you either maybe do agree with, maybe you don't agree with, shoot me a message. Let me know, or throw a comment there on YouTube. Even on Spotify, it's quite a decent place you can leave a comment there. If you do, then be interested to hear. Like I said, I had to formulate some of those opinions myself based on the data. But
yeah, another interesting topic. Thanks, pal, and look forward to seeing where this one goes.
That's it, and that's a wrap for today's show. If this hit home or gave you clarity, share it with your crew and hit subscribe. For tools that help you scale beyond the flight deck, visit my website, bryanrosevere.com, or support the movement at patreon.com/Bryan Air. This is more than a podcast. It's a mission helping aviation professionals rise above the noise, build freedom, and take control of their future. Until the next episode, goodbye for now.
Ciao, ciao.